Hello and welcome to this episode of What Turned You On with me, your host, Kaelen Marie. I had one of my amazing sister goddesses. She's like, hello, if you're going to be doing and curating these stories of these amazing goddesses, you need to include yours as well. And she was right. So let me just tell you about my journey and how I came into this space of what turns me on. So, I was a victim of sexual abuse when between the ages of pardon me, no, 5 and 8 years old. And it was traumatizing. It was really traumatizing. And when I was with an extended family member, and when I had approached my parents and my extended family about what had happened, like I was 8. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't have words for what needed to come out. And it was just like swept under the rug. It was just like, and so my beginning of my days were, well, like so many other people, they were in trauma. And you don't know what you don't know, and not realizing I was a very sexual being, but I'm very spiritual. I cannot remember not knowing that there is a higher power. Like I've always known that there is a higher power. I came with that into this lifetime. And I'm so, so grateful for that. And what I find interesting is I've always been so spiritual. Like everything spirituality, like all I want to know is all the mysteries of the universe, nothing, crazy, just all the mysteries of the universe, because that is literally what lights me up, what turns me on. And especially when I see men stepping into their spiritual awakening, I'm a puddle. I am like, ooh, hello, Texas, because this just is such a turn on for me. It's so beautiful. And so growing up, things happened, and so this is interesting because, I'm a recovering Mormon. So I grew up in the Mormon faith and no sexual contact before marriage. And you don't know what you don't know. This was my sex lesson. You ready for this? Okay, I'm 21 years old. And my fiance at the time had just proposed. And my mom decides she's going to give me the talk. Yeah. God bless mom. Mom's amazing. Just gonna say that right now. Mom's amazing. And she did the best she could at the time with what she had. And this was it, she said. She's like, well, honey, it's like a pickle. It's what I call it. And it gets hard. And it's like a pickle. That was it. I was so stuck. I was like, what does that even mean? No context, none whatsoever, in regards to understanding how that was supposed to work out, right? Even though I had the sexual abuse, I was so young, it didn't click in my head, right? So I get married, and 2 days later, um, we're moving up to northern Utah from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm driving the vehicle that's got like all of our wedding gifts in it, and we're literally 3 miles over the Utah border from Arizona, and I hit the back of an oncoming RV, and all of these teeth are jammed up into my jaw because I swerve and I hit a dirt embankment. And that's how my marriage started off. And so for the next 5 weeks, I had to have my jaws be wired shut. And everything that I consumed, I had to put in a blender. I thought it'd be a really good idea to um, do spaghetti sauce and noodles. Oh, I'm surprised. I did, and I put in straw, and I'm surprised I didn't throw it up right there and like suffocate myself. It was so disgusting. But here's what I found out as time went on. So I'm going to share this image with you here in just a minute. The trauma of being sexually abused, it affected me more than I would have thought in my life and especially in my marriage. And sex was not fun. I didn't find enjoyment in it. And I realized so much of it was because of the shame, the guilt, the fear that I had because I didn't want to do anything wrong. I didn't want to fuck up my life that God wouldn't approve of me. And that was real. That was real for me. And we're talking anxiety and depression and all kinds of stuff that happened, right? It was very, very strong. And so during the marriage, it was really challenging. And what was interesting is the further I got into the marriage, sex became very painful for me. The last 5 years of the marriage, like it was painful. And I couldn't understand what was happening. And I was living in this realm of so much shame and guilt. And then 3 years ago, I completed the marriage, 35-year marriage. And 2.5 years ago, I completed going to church. So I stopped that process because it wasn't feeling it. There was something that was just not clicking in my head anymore. It just wasn't making sense. And I can remember, oh my gosh, I bet at least 10 years ago. And I never said this to anyone because I thought, oh, I'm going to go to hell. But it always bothered me. Why in scripture? Where are the women? Why wasn't Jesus married? Where were the prophetesses and the mothers and like where were they? There were so many men, but where were the women? Where was Heavenly Mother? Where was the goddess? Like I had struggled with that. And it was interesting because I just kept having this feeling in my heart, and it just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And I kept seeing this image of Mother Mary, and love her. And I just kept thinking, the woman's coming back, the goddess is coming back, Mother Mary's coming back, Heavenly Mother's coming back. There's something that's going to shift. And but I didn't dare say anything because I was in the patriarchy. And why would you do that, right? And so I noticed as I continued that I started really gravitating toward Heavenly Mother. There's a book that's so gorgeous. It's called Finding Mother God by Carol Lynn Pearson, and it is a book of poetry. And she is actually still a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And her perspective just, it fed my soul and it gave me so much to realize that there was much more that needed to happen. So then this is just so interesting. I complete everything and I started my business, which has always been called Celebrate You in 2016. And at the time, it was focused on women who had abandoned themselves because that was where I was at. That was my story. I had abandoned myself. I had gone through a very, very, very dark night of the soul. And I came through it. And I was like, if I can go through it and come on the other side, we're talking like suicidal ideations, right? Like I had it all planned out. I was ready to peace out. And it felt, the scary part of it is it felt really, really good. That's when I knew that there was, problem. And so, oof, I got through that and I started this business, this coaching business. And my mom, this amazing woman that she is, she passed in 2021. She was a two-time kidney transplant patient and a quadruple heart bypass patient, and she survived colon cancer and she survived blood infections, and she was like sick my whole life, but she was like this amazing woman, and she just kept going. She just kept going, regardless of all the things that had happened in her life, health-wise. She's like, fuck that shit. I'm just going to keep going. She was on dialysis, and her and my dad would travel, and they would have the solution sent to their hotel, or they'd put it in the window of the back of their car so it could heat up. And it never stopped her. She just kept going, right? So I had this beautiful, beautiful, solid, divine, feminine presence in my life. Ooh, I just miss her so much. But she's guiding me in this work. No, no questions asked. She's guiding me in this work. Stuff happened, and she was one who told me in 2019 that I had problems in my marriage. 2021 comes. Well, the end of 2020, I find out from my children the last night that they see my mom alive that my ex had been managing me my whole married life. These are my grown children telling me this. I'm like, what do you mean managing me? I couldn't grasp it. It was really quite painful. And I just sat there numb, just numb. 2021 comes, my mom passes away in January of 2021. My dog dies in May of 2021, and my marriage dies in September of 2021. It's like the makings of a really great, pathetic country western song. But that was what was my experience. And so my business had to be put on the side because I was figuring out me. I complete the marriage, and the further I get back, like, oh my gosh, like spirit just pours into me, and I can see clearly what had been happening in the marriage, that he was a narcissist. And he had used triangulation, manipulation, managing, controlling for me and my children. And that was really, really rough to see and to witness and to acknowledge that this is what happened. Do I regret marrying him? No. And I'm going to tell you why. Without those experiences, I wouldn't have my babies, wouldn't have my grandbabies, and I wouldn't be this amazing soul that I am today, knowing what I know, experiencing what I've experienced, and having the wisdom and the knowledge that comes with it. And it was then that I started to realize there's things that are happening within the faith that I had grown up in that I couldn't be aligned anymore. I would go to church, and the energy, because I'm this, I feel energy very deeply. And I felt this heaviness of the women, and I just wanted to like vomit. And the last day that I went, this was very interesting. The last day that I'd went, so I had moved in the end of 2021, relocated from Nebraska, where I was living, to Aurora, Colorado, where I'm at now. Thank you, baby Jesus, because I love it here. And I had gone to church. And this was what was really interesting. My first Sunday there was actually the Sunday after Christmas in 2021. And I walk in and I just feel this heaviness, and it's just like so painful. And just over a year later, October 16th of 2022 was my last day at church. And up to that point in this new congregation that I was going to, the women, there were some women that were very friendly. They were very sweet and very kind, and I'm really grateful for that. The men, on the other hand, there were a total of 5 men the entire time that spoke to me. One was the bishop, one was this counselor, and one was my home teacher, and 2 other men. And oh, but the last one, so that day they were putting in a new bishopric. And for the first time, this man who's sitting in front of me with his family, he turns back and he says hello, and he acknowledges me. And I was like, oh, that made me feel good. Yeah, he did it because out of obligation, because he had just been called into the bishopric, and within 20 minutes, he'd been called up onto the stand. And I was like, you, you're, I'm an obligation now. That's not working for me. I will never be anyone's obligation, period. Right? So that was my last day there. And in 2022, in that same year, I had been asked to speak at energy healing conferences in Utah, and I was like over the moon. I was so excited because I'm getting my business going again, right? And so I'm like, Spirit, you know exactly what I'm going to talk on, and you gotta guide me on this. So I start, me and road trips, we're like this, we're like BFFs. Me and road trips in my vehicle, and I just receive all these beautiful downloads. And so I'm driving, and Spirit's so loud, and the Spirit's like, okay, this is what you're going to talk about. You're going to talk about healing sexual trauma from religious conditioning and the patriarchy. And you're going to talk about bringing them into pleasure. I'm like, okay. Well, I had the first part down. It was good. It was really good. It's like, I've got the first part down. But that bridging over into pleasure was still something I was having challenges with. And so I'm going to share with you this on my screen because I think this is very interesting. So remember when I told you that I had my car wreck? So this is what happened in regards to my car wreck. And I had no idea what this was about. And here we go. So look at this image here. This is the connection of the jaw and the pelvis. 2 days after I was married, I have this jaw wired shut. And it corresponded directly to me shutting down sexually in the biggest way. And the way that the jaw and the pelvis are connected is through the fascia. Fascia holds emotion, fascia holds memory. And so all of this stuff was happening, right? And so I was like, this makes complete sense for me. I understand this. And so I realized that I needed to shift. I needed to understand and start working on me. Before I get too excited, let me just come back to when I completed the marriage. And I am, so I say on September 19th of 2021, I tell my ex I'm done. And I tell him, like, I just knew that there was that my sexuality was starting to perk up and bubble up, and I just wanted more. I needed more. I was craving more. I wanted, and I told him, I said, I want passion, I want romance, I want sensuality and sexuality, I want eroticism. Like, you don't use those words when you're in the patriarchy, right? I'm like, I want this. And he's like, oh, good luck with that. I'm like, okay. And so I'm like craving this. And so I go to my sister's house, move into her basement, start my healing. But the first thing that she says to me when I get into her house is she's like, your throat chakra's stuck. Okay, we need to clear it. All right. She goes, this is how we're doing. I'm like, and I wasn't a swearer up at that point. And she's like, we're going to clear your throat chakra. I'm like, okay. So this is the ritual now that we do. And I'm telling you what, it is like my signature and her signature because it just works. So on the count of three, we yell 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And we just let it out. And well, you know what? My throat chakra, it started to get clear. So then she says to me, now you need to explore Mother Teresa. And I'm like, oh, there we don't go there. No, 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 no. We good girls, we don't go down there. And it is only called a vagina. We don't go there. And and your spirit's going, ah, come on. We're doing some stuff. So in 2022, I'm on Instagram and I come upon this amazing woman who is a sacred sexuality coach out of Paris. And I hire her on the spot. And it was very private, it was very intimate, it was one-on-one, it was off camera when I needed it to be, which was all the time at that point. And so she helped me literally break the ice. And here's what I did not know. The first time she had me grab a mirror and gaze at my pussy, I saw the goddess and I started to cry. I'm like, wait, what? I've been looking for you my whole life, and you are here in me? The most beautiful thing I'd ever seen was my own pussy. Most beautiful. And here we are as women walking around in the patriarchy, and the fear, the shame, and the guilt that are attached for going and even taking a look at anything down there. Why? Why are you banning us from our own bodies? And why are we listening? Right? Why are we listening? Well, I broke it at that time. And this is kind of funny because it was like, okay, one and done. I went through the program. I don't really need to do any more self-pleasuring. I'm good. I'm good. Spirit's like, oh, baby girl, you still have so much to learn, and we're going to keep this going. So I speak at the last energy healing conference in November in 2022. I spoke twice, and it was amazing. And I had started a sacred sexuality circle, and with these women that were in the faith and had abuse, and witnessing how they were guided, and I learned I'm just the vessel that holds the space and the container, and spirit does everything, the divine does everything, the goddess does everything. I just get to hold that space. And I just witness this beautiful miracles and magic happening. So I go to speak at the last conference, and I am so in the zone. I am like the energy is so potent, and I'm making these connections with these people, and like it is just juicy and it's wonderful. And so I try one of those digital business cards. And I'm like, oh, this is so great. I'm so excited. I was giving out my QR code like crazy. QR code is really cool, by the way. And I'm giving it out and giving it out. And so then at the end of the night, I'm so excited because I've connected with a lot of people, right? And I go to see all the leads that I gathered. Forgot to hit the little toggle button to go and collect everyone. 89 leads I missed that day. 89 leads. And here's what Spirit says. Spirit's like, okay, we got to close this door because you still have healing to do. We're going to put your business on the back burner. It's not going anywhere. It's just going to be over here because you still have a whole lot of stuff that you got to peel off before you go where you're going. I was like, okay. You lead, I'll follow. You lead, I'll follow. I'm really good at that. You lead, I'll follow. So I get hired on by Southwest Airlines, and I am working at the Denver International Airport as a customer service agent. So I'm on the concourse and I'm at the terminal. And I'm all over the largest airport in the world, second largest airport in the world. It was just common to get minimum 10,000 steps a day, right? Because we're just like all over the place. And oh, the toxicity there had to be so bad at that airport, um, because what happened is I started to do a lot of shedding. So you know how you have like your chicken bone and you are taking the meat off the bone, okay? This was my healing journey while I was working at Southwest Airlines. I'm the chicken bone and with the meat on it, except the chicken is still alive and the meat's being pulled off the bone. It was so painful. But the beautiful gift was so many things started to shift and happen. I didn't realize that the pain that I had been experiencing sexually was a direct correlation to my hip. And I was in such excruciating pain, like, oh, the majority of the time that I was there. And I didn't realize until um, I'd gone to an orthopedic surgeon, and he's like, "How are you even walking?" He goes, "I don't even know." He goes, "I don't even need to do an MRI because your right hip, which is interesting because the right side's the masculine side. And for me, it's the patriarchy and the religious conditioning. And this has traveled with me through lifetimes. This has come with me through lifetimes. And I was at a place to where I was able to go and have a complete full hip replacement and great insurance, everything taken care of. And that was in April of this year, 2024. I was like, oh my gosh, now you got to check this out. My hips, you know what? Well, let me see if I can get you like this. See this? My hips, I take salsa now. I take salsa dancing twice a week. My hips haven't been able to do that in 25 years. And I'm like, yes! Once again, thank you, baby Jesus, right? So now I've got this lease on life. And so you're like, well, okay, Kaelen Marie, when are you going to get to Mama Gina? Well, I'm going to get to Mama Gina now. So when I had my sacred sexuality circle with the women that I had coached in 2022, I purchased all these books. And one of the books I purchased was Pussy or Reclamation. Never read it, had it. And it was interesting because this summer I had pulled it out for some reason. Oh, I know. I had done an oracle pulling, oracle deck. And it said in there, go grab a book and open up to one of the pages in there because you're going to find your message there. And I was like, I need to go pull that one out. So I pull it out, pull out the message. I forget what it was in this now moment. But then I go and take it from my bedroom and I put it on the dining room table. So then, oh my gosh, in June of this year, 2024, I I I I go for a booty call with a guy that I know. And it's at night, and I didn't realize that it was raining outside. And so as I'm driving to his home, I drive straight into a hailstorm, like straight into it. And was so bad that I had to pull off the side of the road. And for 30 minutes, I am being pulverized. It was like I had 50 people outside with bats just smashing my vehicle. I was waiting for my windshield to implode on me. Okay. And so it's like, oh my gosh, what? And I'm in there, I'm praying and I'm wrapping my car in light and I'm just like trying to, ah. So I called the guy and I'm like, hey, I don't think I'm going to be coming. He's like, oh, come on, it'll be great. You'll be so happy. And I'm like, oh. So I wait, get through it. The hailstorm, I make it over to his place and let's just say it was nothing to write home to mom about at all, ever. End of story. But I needed to have that experience. I needed to have it be that shitty. I needed it to be that shitty so that I could hear what spirit was telling me. I get in my car and I'm driving back through the broken windshield, right? And I get home and I go to bed and I'm like, you got to guide me. What is the lesson here? And it was so loud and it was so clear. And spirit's like, you need to go read the book. You got to go read the book. Next morning, I get up, I go get it, and I open it up and I start reading. I read the preface, like the beginning, right? I'm bawling. The first three chapters, I'm bawling. I've read it and I devoured it. I read it three times. I listened to it on because then I had to purchase the audio, right? And I listened to it over and over again. And I'm like, okay, this is the missing piece. This is what I need for my coaching business. So I go and start back to work July 4th. And this is so great. One of my friends, first day, I'm on the bus, taking me to the concourse, and she's got her phone. She's like this. She's like, welcome back. Welcome to hell. And I'm like, but I've been off for 3 months with my hip replacement, right? And so I hadn't been around the toxicity. And I was like, okay, that's what we'll be doing. Okay. So this was July 4th. And by the middle to the end of July, I mean, it's taken me a bit. I kept going to Mama Gina's website, and on my phone, it was always I was going to do her 9-week course that was $500. I'm like, doing this, doing this. So, oh my gosh. So I get up enough nerve. I just been out on my walk, doing my exercises for my hip, and I go and I click. It's always the second one down on the website, and I click on the second one down, and what pops up? Because I'm ready to pay for it. I'm ready to do it right then. And what pops up is her certification program. And I read the entire thing, and I'm like, oh, this is the missing piece. This is it. And then I looked at the price and I was like, my beloveds, my guides, my guardian spirit, goddess, y'all out there, everyone listening, if you brought me here, you show me the way where this money is, because I know I can find it. I know I can find it. A couple of weeks previous, my financial advisors out of Nebraska had reached out and said, hey, we're changing systems, need to have you sign this document, blah, 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 blah. And I realized I had money in an IRA from the divorce. And within a week, the money was out. Oh, and here's the best part. Because I was older by a month and a half. So she asked me, she's like, how old are you? I said, well, I'm going to be 60 in like, a month and a half. Yeah, 2 months. She's like, oh, you're older than 59 and a half. So there's no penalties for you to take this money out. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm just like over the moon. I'm so excited. So I pay for it within a week. I pay for it in full. And I'm in, and I'm in. And I know I'm going to be facing some serious demons, because remember back in 2022 was like the last time I really did anything with, Mother Teresa, AKA pussy. And so I'm like, okay. And then the journey began, as you know, my beautiful goddesses, and you've witnessed me facing the demons of my soul in the patriarchy and shedding it and releasing it and finding that everything that I've ever needed, ever wanted, ever desired is literally within me, within my own pussy. I sit in amazement at what turns me on now, because living turns me on. Breathing turns me on. Connections in a spiritual and sacred sexuality realm turn me on. Meeting women such as yourself turn me on. Light me up. Being in service to women. Oh, and men. It's just so beautiful. So this is me, Kaelen Marie. What turns me on is me. What turns me on is you. What turns me on is the goddess. What turns me on is this amazing life that I get to live, that I get to lead, and that I get to help other women heal from sexual trauma, the shame, the guilt, the fear of religious conditioning and patriarchy, and bring them back into their divine state of pleasure. It has been an honor. Thank you so very much for allowing me to share my story. And I am so excited for all of you that are watching, and to have you engage and click the like button, click the subscribe button, share it. All of these videos that we're curating, well, that I should say that me and Goddess are curating, and Pussy. Thank you so much. I love you all.